Hey there, everybody. So today I wanted to talk about something a little, meta. Anyways, so back in April, I worked really hard on this video right here. It's called, Where Did Tech Bros Get Their Ideas From? Now, I actually put all of my videos on my website, punishfelix.com, right? And you can just see how much work I put into this piece, right? Like, look at all this. Now, here's my sources, right, down here. Here are all of my sources, right? We have 48 sources, I believe. Yeah, 48 sources, right? Now, now the problem is that recently, I was shown this video that was just uploaded.
The thing people don't understand about AI accelerationists is that they literally operate under a different set of logical assumptions than we do. Like when Peter Thiel called Greta Thunberg the Antichrist, he actually meant that because he thinks we're approaching a singularity with AI and anybody who gets in the way of that is evil. And a lot of other very rich people in tech are also transhumanists who believe that we should develop and integrate with AI as quickly as possible. But this all rests under the very flawed assumption that a human-machine singularity is going to happen. This ultimately stems out of the Cartesian idea of dualism, that the mind can be separated from the body and therefore uploaded to a machine. But that's a very flawed understanding of consciousness. In reality, we're deeply enmeshed in our bodies and our environments, and your consciousness is inseparable from your sensory experience. And yet, this already incorrect idea of dualism is then combined with a form of teleological thinking, that things have an innate purpose and are going to evolve in a particular direction.
So I am a little, to be blunt, I'm a little suspicious of where Etymology Nerd got this argument from, because it's very suspiciously similar to the material that I put out in my own video.
To separate human societies from genes, he produces a Cartesian dualism that separates man from nature on no other basis other than to support the language that he uses to describe his model. This is what leads to the production of the idea of memes. In the essay, How Dawkins Got Pwned, yeah, that's 2007 for you, Moldbug outlines his ideas for how the outlaw memes that Dawkins discussed in the past can be used to proliferate ideas, to transmit ideas rapidly through society. Embedding Dawkins' dualism from decades prior introduced in the Selfish Gene into NRX and the Dark Enlightenment. This reinforced among them that the relationship between the physical abstract machines and the virtual ideas being transmitted as a consequence of them does not matter, and that information can freely proliferate, and value can continuously be extracted from its codes. Moldbug does not even really give the impression that he really understands or even cares about the consequences of the virus that he's producing. The core issue of Land's interpretation, as best as I can understand it, because Land makes no attempts to communicate his premises clearly in a way not heavily embedded in deep esoteria and edgy over-the-top language, is captured in a quote noted by Stivall. Machinic desire is the operation of the virtual, implementing itself into the actual, re-virtualizing itself, and producing reality in a circuit. In other words, Land believes that desire presents virtual possibilities that come to life by being actualized. However, this is only half the story of schizoanalysis. It is true that virtual possibilities model actualized futures, but Land critically forgets that the virtual possibilities are constructed by actual material forces in the first place. He forgot the most critical aspect of Guattari, that desire comes first. Desire is routed by these structures of virtuality produced by actual conditions. This would be obvious if Land engaged further with Guattari's work, or even engaged more seriously with the Capitalism and Schizophrenia series. Land, clearly not understanding anything about the physical mechanics of a computer, something I'm sure Guattari would have noticed immediately if he had lived to see it, sends materialism to the wind.
And he offers no sources. He doesn't list anything in the comments about where this came from. Now that's not necessarily problematic in of itself, although he should really list his sources for everything that he does. I've gotten a lot better with that. Just my personal advice. But on his website, actually his Substack, right? You know, he doesn't post anything about this particular a thing, right? So if we look at like his latest posts, right, he does talk a bit about like algorithms and stuff, but he's not really like talking about specifically like the Cartesian dualism of, you know, the accelerationists, as he calls it. It's very difficult because it's actually like a bunch of movements. It's sometimes it's called TESReal because there's literally a whole bunch of groups that are like ideologies that are involved in this movement, right? But yeah, none of this is about like, you know, that Cartesian dualism, and that is specifically a point that I have built on my channel for years now, because it's comes from my critique of Richard Dawkins's The Selfish Gene, because in The Selfish Gene, he insists on the difference between genes and memes, right? That's where the Cartesian dualism gets introduced, right? In fact, in this video, I explain that the Cartesian dualism is introduced from Richard Dawkins, right, over here, because, like, he was trying to react to a particular kind of politics within evolutionary biology. And this led to later, you know, Curtis Yarvin responding to him around this point in the video. It's a little later. I don't want to get the exact scrubbing. But yeah, so it's very interesting how this guy just apparently seems to come to the same conclusions as I do, but with no actual, like, you know, research or anything. I get that he's like a TikToker influencer, but, you know, personally, as somebody who is not, you know, academic, I know how vulnerable I am to plagiarism, and I take plagiarism very seriously. In fact, I do happen to know that, you know, there are people within academia who do reference and use my work, and it is not acceptable for somebody to just, you know, treat my work like this, right? I don't expect, like, anything other than just a, you know, hey, Punished Felix came up with this, or, you know, here's the blog, or here's my sources. That would help, right? I mean, this guy doesn't even give his sources. I think it's totally possible to independently come to this conclusion, but, you know, he doesn't give any evidence that he did. He just gives a lot of evidence that he seems to have a very shaky understanding of where this relation may have evolved from, which is very suspicious, and this is very frustrating because this video has like 500,000 views. So, you know, I would appreciate a response from Etymology Nerd about what's going on, like where are your sources and where you're getting this from, you know, because I'm a little YouTuber, okay? I really cannot, you know, I really don't appreciate, you know, a person who has hundreds of thousands of subscribers stealing my content. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that.